All right, here's a look at my favorites from the last couple weeks. I compressed a couple of them together based on having a few from the mountains and a few from being home this week. But here we go. So starts out with some mountain shots, and these Stellar's jays were, there's a lot of them when we were up there this time. The last time I don't recall there being so many, so there's a handful of shots of these. This is I went to the Stanfield Marsh at sunrise one morning, thinking that I would get, some good birds of prey or something, and I didn't really get too much. But everywhere you looked, if you looked downstream on the marsh, or down marsh on the marsh, I guess, there was like 20 of these fish at any one time coming in and eating on the surface right as the sun crested over and illuminated it all. So I think I was in the right spot if there was going to be, a bald eagle or something, but just, I didn't get anything in that terminology. But I did get, and this is the first time I feel like I've seen it, which is weird because the, basic Wikipedia search seemed to say that this might be the most populous bird in North America, but this is a red-winged blackbird. And you can see the red flare and then this little yellow puff flare underneath. Not a big bird, but I hadn't really noticed them before or seen them before, so I was stoked to get a quick snap of it, and I thought it did a good job at showing the details there. You'll also notice I'm now posting how I crop it when I send it to my friends versus the full crop too, on these videos. Just, that's what I'm doing. I don't know. I enjoyed this squirrel based on the lighting. It was very... the lighting worked out with this blade of grass across the lighting where it's illuminated and it's shaded. I didn't do very much in post on this at all. Certainly not on that squirrel to highlight that. So I like when you can get... I'm getting more and more into the need for distinct lighting contrast, and even a simple squirrel with the right light looks pretty cool. This was a fun one. This was just outside of where we stayed. It shot in my car through the windshield at a weird angle, super high ISO to try to get anything. Definitely not artisan shots, but it was a funny moment, and I like sharing funny moments and unique stuff with my people, so I like to share it on my blog for everyone else. This bunny and squirrel were in this repeated battle, and the bunny would bounce up and put it... Oh, this is the other look. This is the last one that they're out of order a little bit because when I assembled them as a sequence. So this was the last part of the battle where the bunny straight lunged at the squirrel and chased it off. I have no idea if this was a game of tag, if this was a game of this is my area. I don't know how serious it was. The rabbit seemed to get the upper hand every time, and you can see the squirrel's kind of no joke in how hard he's taken off. So I thought that was funny. And then here's the other one that's actually out of sequence, but this happened first a couple times. The squirrel would inch up on the rabbit, and then the rabbit would jump up, just kind of spring, and that moment, and it looked like it was going to kick its back legs out at the squirrel, and the squirrel reacted like a squirrel that's been kicked by the back legs of a jumping rabbit, because it was gone. I think I saw this 3 times before it happened twice. I got my camera out and got the third one while we were trying to pull into the driveway, but it was rather funny. Some more looks at those Stellar's jays. Really a lot of detail down here across the feathers. A little bit of light and dark contrast. Not many of these will make my website for prints, but I do like just sharing it with people and seeing what's out there. So here's another look as it picks at its plumage. You can see the blue flare on the oh man, the word escapes me at the moment, but yeah. This one I'm not 100% sure what I'm looking at. It might just be the sun is illuminating the bottom of its throat, making it kind of transparent, but I do not know enough about birds to know for a fact. But I don't recall seeing any other, red flares on this bird in any of the other shots. Kind of the overlooking shot here. They're very judgmental. They definitely stared at me. Got back to San Diego and went down to the river. Was able to shoot some fun stuff. Here's a pair of, I believe, curlews. What made this work for me was their balance and interaction here. There's a handful of other shots through this sequence, but this was the only one that really spoke to me at all. And then this is a series. Some of these photos I do like, and a couple of them might make it into prints or into a book. But more so than that, these terns are very, very nimble, I guess would be the word. And you can see through this series of different shots all of the arrangements of its flight controls or its feathers. So here on the rear, you see that it's spread horizontally, kind of maximizing the width. And then in this next one I actually really do like, kind of hitting the air brakes, everything, slowing down to see if the fish that's underneath it is still there or whatever. Shows the gradients pretty well, I thought. And in particular, this flare on the rear feathers. I do not know what that's called, the tail feathers. But back to the other concept. So in the last one where the bird was laid out like this, you saw the feathers were kind of parallel with the wings. And here they are, the tail feathers are streamlined, they're behind, they're more what you might see in a swallow tattoo or whatever, where it's they're very capable of adjusting, and it's what makes them so nimble. Here's another look at it from underneath with kind of the two trailing tail feathers, and that flares out into that big fan when they want it. This might be a little better look at that. You can kind of see it's not trailing them right beside each other, it's starting to wedge them out. But another look at the gradients here. I do not usually shoot photos of seagulls, occasionally, very, very, very once in a while, but something about the parasitic nature of gulls just doesn't do much for me. There's actually a gull that some of the bird people pointed out to me when we go offshore. It's called a Jaeger, and it chases other birds around until they throw up, and then it eats whatever they had eaten. Just not necessarily what I'm about. But tracking back to these gulls, they are pretty cute when they're tiny. So these are a couple brand new chicks just hanging on the cliffs at La Jolla. Another look at one of the new chicks. And I think this one might be my favorite of the three. Maybe the first one with the wings, because I thought that was kind of funny. They don't often, when they're that little, pull their arms or wings up. But the little bit of extra color flare that leads into the subject here gives this more of that art class composition. Same day, down in La Jolla, there's been a lot of brown pelicans there lately, and I really hadn't seen this behavior before, but they were standing kind of right at the edge of the water. When the waves would come in, they would hunt like this, with feet on the ground, or maybe barely just floating. But thought it was an interesting look at how the gular pouch expands and how they utilize that tool. My wife had texted me that same morning that there was a pair of, I don't know if twins is the right word, or siblings, sea lions, which is super unusual. You might have heard about it on the news by now and seen it wherever. I don't post a lot of pup photos until later because I just don't feel like you need to, you know, these ones are on the cove, and when they're on the cove, they're much more likely to have issues with people and you know, need to be rescued and whatever. So I kind of don't post this stuff. I send it to friends and family, and it sits on my blog, but it's not out on social media. But I was able to find the 2 pups nursing, which was pretty cool. So I got a couple photos that I thought spoke to that. And yeah, during the week, the Seal Society and some of the other people that I work with were really getting into how rare this is. If one of the gals that I know says she saw them in the same birth sac, so I guess that would be twins. There's another person I know from another group that says no, there's a mom in La Jolla that is known to adopt abandoned ones or whatever. Either way, pretty unusual for a mom to be letting 2 nurse on her. I tend to think that they're probably related, but I wasn't there when they were actually born. So pretty cute stuff. This one was my favorite of all the shots, just because you had all 3 of the heads kind of working together, and everything's sort of tied in together. You've got everybody touching everybody. Got out on a day on the water, and the light was just doing really bizarre things. There wasn't a lot of contrast, which made it hard to shoot. And then some angles you would get this sort of gray on gray. The other angles you'd get this, you know, that blue kind of low contrast, which we'll see in here too. But I thought this was a good photo. One, some people don't want all the like heavy, you know, blues. And so, you know, this is a wildlife photo that can sit in a room that, you know, can't have a high blue or whatever print in it. It's also a good way of showing, you know, the unique patterns here on the flukes, which is one of the ways they identify these whales. So I don't have an ID on this whale just yet, but I am waiting on that from Happy Whale. Another look at it. This one, at some point I was editing them, but I was also kind of like, I do some work in post, but then sometimes I'll drop it into Photoshop afterwards and just hit the auto settings just to see what it thinks. I think this was an auto setting in Photoshop, so it thought that the world was a little bit more purple maybe than I thought it was. But, you know, it's always a learning experience. So here's another angle where the glare wasn't as bad, but there's still not a lot of contrast. This shot is interesting because it shows this, what I believe to be an entanglement scar across the top arch here before the dorsal fin on this humpback. You'd be surprised how many of these whales show entanglement issues, you know, when you really zoom in and look at it. But it seemed to be doing okay. Another shot of its unique tail. An additional shot of its tail, kind of showing with the, you know, some of the San Diego shoreline in the background. I think maybe that first photo. This is proof that they're not always the great photos. You know, I do end up with bad photos, and I do end up kicking myself sometimes. So didn't pick up the focus. Again, these low contrast days where the camera's kind of seeing everything sort of the same, and I had to work this in post a bit to get it to be kind of visibly contrasty. But I missed this breach. The only thing that really kind of made that more, you know, you could swallow it a little bit more, was that it had breached away from me, so I wasn't going to get any of the details of the rostrum or whatever. But it was impressive breach. It's a big whale, but they're not all in focus. There's a worse one. Came up a little closer to us, and I was able to One of the tricks, and I've got to remember to do it. The breaches are really hard for me to remember to do it because it's there's some advantages to pre-focus on the cameras I shoot. So they'll actually start pulling images before you fully shoot if you have it sort of half focused, half cocked. So a lot of times I'm starting to do that. But one of the things you can do on these low contrast days that I do it, except for when I get excited, sometimes I forget to do it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But if you shoot, let go, let it, half cock, shoot, like kind of do it fast, it'll re-aim itself several times, refocus itself, and you might end up with, a better... You might pull out some shots that are in focus from a band or a group that aren't all. The downside is if you're already in focus and you come out of focus, that's always a bummer. But like these, I think I was doing that where I was trying to pick it up, let off, pick it up again. And I got a little better results, even though there's really not a lot of contrast here. So here is the heartbreak shot. This would have been such a good shot for me and for Net Zero and all the different things. It just didn't pick up the focus. It was, not enough light. Or I don't know if I would have run a lot more ISO if I could have got at least something sharper. If it would have picked up. I don't think I could have run down on the shutter very much because you end up getting motion blur. This stuff all happens very fast. And then as far as the aperture, it's, you could get a little bit, but I like, when I was shooting this thinking, okay, I'm gonna have focus issues. If I run a little bit more higher aperture number, I'll get a little bit more distance out of it, and that might cheat the focus point back onto like what I want the subject to be. But sometimes it just doesn't work out, and this was one that didn't work out. It depressed me for a whole day probably. Here's this splash after its breach. You can see Net Zero here in the back. I get out with these cats every now and then. They're good people. They're Rib out of Mission Bay. And yeah, that wraps it up for the week. So if you're interested in any of the exact settings for all of these images, and you're on my site, scroll down there underneath all of them. There'll be some notes kind of on things that I noticed maybe. And if you're on any of the video hosting sites, I do link my blog below. So jump off the video hosting and come over to my blog. Check out this one and several others. And I look forward to doing this again next week.